The morning sunlight streamed through the tall windows of my Lisbon apartment, casting long rectangles of warmth across the wooden floor. I balanced my coffee mug in one hand, scrolling through emails with the other bills, work assignments, a newsletter from that cooking class I'd taken last month. Nothing remarkable. Until Mrs. Langford's name appeared. My finger froze above the screen. Mrs. Langford had been our neighbor for 20 years, the kind woman who'd sneaked me cookies when Mom was enforcing one of her ridiculous diets, who'd attended every school play when my parents were too busy. I hadn't heard from her since leaving Dallas 3 years ago. The subject line knocked the air from my lungs. I can't believe what I saw today. I'm so sorry about your parents. The mug slipped from my grasp, shattering against the tile floor. Coffee splashed across my bare feet, but I barely registered the heat. My hands trembled as I clicked open the email. Olivia, I don't know if this will reach you, but I had to try. I attended a service at Gracewood Chapel today. I can't believe what your parents have done. Please watch the attached video. Call me if you can. I pressed play, heart hammering against my ribs. The familiar wood-paneled interior of Gracewood Chapel filled my screen. A large Portrait Me graduation photo stood on an easel beside a polished mahogany casket. My father stood at the pulpit, his silver hair catching the light from the stained glass windows. Our daughter Olivia was troubled, he said, voice breaking with practiced precision, but deeply loved. The room tilted. I clutched the edge of my desk, willing my stomach to settle as my mother approached the microphone, dabbing at dry eyes with a handkerchief. Though we lost Olivia too soon, we take comfort knowing her struggles are finally over. Lost me? Struggles over? I was sitting right here, 3,000 miles away, very much alive and breathing. I paused the video, unable to watch more. Memories crashed over me like waves that final night 3 years ago, the family dinner that had shattered everything I thought I knew about blood and loyalty. Dad had called everyone together for an emergency family meeting. The dining room gleamed with Mom's best china and crystal, a formality that had immediately set my teeth on edge. Haley arrived last, eyes already red-rimmed, clutching her husband's arm like she might collapse without it. Someone has embezzled $2,000 from the firm, Dad announced, his voice flat as he stared at the center of the table. Haley's sob cut through the silence. I found the discrepancies in the accounts, she whispered. Someone has betrayed us. Every eye shifted to me. Better one ruined daughter than two, Mom had said, pointing directly at me, her fingers steady as a judge's gavel. I'd fled that night. No goodbyes, no explanations. Just a one-way ticket to Lisbon, and the determination to build a life where I wouldn't be anyone's scapegoat. Now this. They'd declared me dead? I scrambled to my laptop, searching public records with shaking hands. There it was, a death certificate. Olivia Mercer, died the 14th of August, 2022, boating accident, Italy. I dialed my old bank in Dallas, the phone slippery in my sweating palm. I need to access my accounts, I said, straining to keep my voice steady. Account number and verification, please? I recited the information from memory. A pause. I'm sorry, but we can't discuss accounts of deceased individuals. The phone slipped from my fingers. I sat motionless, staring at the wall, until a strange calm settled over me. My hands stopped trembling as I reached for my passport and Portuguese residency permit. Tangible proof I existed. I was here. I was real. I returned to the laptop, fingers moving with new purpose. Haley's Instagram was public, always had been. She loved an audience. The most recent post showed her in a flowing white dress, champagne flute raised beside our beaming parents. The caption burned into my vision. To the only daughter who never let us down. I dug deeper, finding bank statements, property transfers, my $25,000 college fund gone. The trust fund from Grandma Mercer that was supposed to mature on my 35th birthday transferred to Haley. This wasn't just emotional erasure. This was calculated, complete, and coldly executed. They hadn't just disowned me, they'd buried me. And now, sitting in the sunlight of a country they'd never visit, surrounded by the life I'd built from nothing, I made a silent promise. I would not stay dead. The death certificate appeared on my screen with clinical precision. Certificate ID, TXD, 975,312. Name, Olivia Grace Mercer. Cause of death, drowning. Location, Lake Como, Italy. I traced my fingers across the screen, touching the digital version of my own demise. My back pressed against the wall as I slid to the floor, lungs struggling against an invisible weight. The room tilted and swayed as the full weight of what I was seeing crashed down. This wasn't just a family disowning their daughter. This was methodical, calculated. Someone had forged Italian medical reports, filed official paperwork, created an entire fiction of my death. "This isn't happening," I whispered to the empty room, but the evidence remained, pixels forming an unmistakable truth. My family hadn't just cut me off, they'd erased me. I forced myself to breathe, in through the nose, out through the mouth. The panic receded enough for me to think clearly. I turned back to Mrs. Langford's email and clicked on the video again, forcing myself to watch more. The camera panned across Gracewood Chapel, focusing on my father. Charles Mercer stood tall at the podium, silver hair perfectly combed, his black suit tailored to hide the slight paunch he'd developed in recent years. His face carried the appropriate grief, eyes downcast, voice catching at precisely the right moments. "We gather today to remember our Olivia," he said, one hand gripping the podium. Though her struggles with mental health were known only to those closest to her, we never stopped trying to help. Mental health? I leaned forward, stomach clenching. I'd never had a single diagnosis, never seen a therapist beyond the 3 sessions Mom insisted on when I refused to attend cotillion at 16. The camera shifted to my mother, Margaret, positioned slightly behind Dad. Her black dress probably cost more than my monthly rent in Lisbon. Not a hair out of place, dabbing occasionally at dry eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. Olivia's troubled nature was a cross we bore silently, Mom said, voice steady. We respected her privacy even as we tried to guide her toward help. Haley stood nearby, her face contorted in what anyone else would read as grief. I recognized it as the same expression she'd worn when accepting her high school drama award. She sobbed into her husband's shoulder, occasionally looking up to make sure the camera caught her anguish. "I tried so hard to help my sister," she whimpered. "If only she'd accepted our help before it was too late." The video continued, but I couldn't stomach more lies. I closed the laptop and pressed my palms against my eyes until starbursts appeared in the darkness. When I opened my eyes again, determination replaced the shock. I had to understand the full scope of what they'd done. I started with social media. My Facebook profile marked, "Remembering Olivia Mercer," Instagram account memorialized, Twitter deactivated, LinkedIn gone completely. Every digital footprint I'd ever created had been either erased or converted into a memorial. I tried accessing my American bank accounts again, this time through online banking. Account suspended. I called my credit card company. "I'm sorry, but that account has been closed due to the death of the cardholder," the representative told me. I pulled up my U.S. credit report. There it was, in bold red letters across the top, deceased status. No wonder my recent application for a Portuguese business license had been flagged for inconsistencies. My American existence had been systematically wiped away, leaving me stranded in Portugal with only what I'd managed to transfer before fleeing 3 years ago. My throat tightened as the walls of my apartment seemed to close in. Without my U.S. credit history or identification, I couldn't even return home properly if I wanted to. My phone pinged with another email from Mrs. Langford. "Olivia, I've been asking questions around town. There's a young attorney, Kendrick Hall, who noticed something wasn't right about your parents' handling of your affairs. He might be able to help. Here's his contact information." I stared at Kendrick's number and email address, a small flame of hope flickering to life. For the first time since opening that video, I had a potential ally beyond Mrs. Langford. As I stared at Kendrick's contact information, I wondered, should I pursue legal justice now, exposing my family's fraud immediately? Or should I return unannounced to confront them personally at the upcoming memorial, creating a moment they couldn't deny or escape from? Immediate action might protect others from their schemes, but a public confrontation would ensure they faced the consequences in front of the very community they'd used to erase me. The sun had moved across my apartment, the warm rectangles of light now falling on the coffee stains from my shattered mug. I looked at my reflection in the window pale but solid. Present, real. Whatever my next move, one thing was certain. I refused to remain a ghost. Hours later, the Dallas Morning News website loads sluggishly on my laptop. The familiar red logo brings a wave of homesickness I quickly push aside. 3 years away hasn't dulled my instinct to check the business section first. And there it is, the headline that confirms my worst fears. Mercer Financial Names, Haley Crawford, sole heir to family enterprise. The accompanying photo shows my sister in a tailored black suit, standing between our beaming parents. Dad's hand rests possessively on her shoulder, while Mom gazes at her with unmistakable pride. The kind of pride she never once directed at me. Following the tragic loss of their eldest daughter, the article reads, Charles and Margaret Mercer have announced Haley Crawford will assume control of all family holdings. My phone chimes with an email notification. The Portuguese Immigration Office requires my immediate attention regarding discrepancies in identity documentation. My work visa renewal, previously a formality, is now being questioned. I open another browser tab to check my bank account. The balance remains steady, but a new notification banner flashes at the top of the screen. Your attention required. Identity verification needed. When the doorbell rings, I flinch so violently I knock over my water glass. Heart hammering, I peer through the peephole to see my landlord, Mr. Tavares, shifting uncomfortably in the hallway. Miss Mercer, he says when I open the door, his weathered face creased with concern. I received strange phone call yesterday. Someone asking about tenant fraud. They say my apartment is rented to a dead woman. He studies my face, confusion evident in his rheumy eyes. You look very alive to me, no? I force a smile. Very alive, Mr. Tavares. It's a mistake. But after he leaves, I slide down against the door, my breath coming in shallow gasps. They found me here. My carefully constructed life is unraveling thread by thread. The next morning, an official letter arrives from the Dallas County Probate Court. The contents blur before my eyes. Final distribution of remaining estate to sole surviving heir, Haley Mercer Crawford. The formal legal language can't disguise what's happening. They're systematically erasing every trace of my existence. I stop checking my mailbox daily, then I stop answering unknown phone numbers. Each ring might bring another piece of my identity being stripped away. Sleep becomes a luxury I can no longer afford. Instead, I begin documenting everything. I take daily selfies with Portuguese newspapers, timestamps visible. I save receipts from every purchase. I ask coworkers to include me in photos, tagging me by name on their private social media. I record video journals, narrating the date and major world events. I exist, I whisper to my reflection each morning. I am here. The evidence piles up on my desk, a paper trail of a life they claim ended in an Italian boating accident. I wonder if anyone besides me will ever see it. Then a message appears in my rarely used Instagram account. A direct message from Jeremy, my cousin on Dad's side. The profile picture shows him with the same crooked smile I remember from family cookouts. I don't believe you're dead. They wouldn't let me see any proof. Tell me you're out there somewhere. His simple faith in my existence brings tears to my eyes, the first moment of genuine relief since Mrs. Langford's email upended my world. The video call with attorney Kendrick Hall begins precisely at 10 a.m. Dallas time. His office appears just as I'd expect, from a rising legal star meticulously organized with impressively thick law books lining the shelves behind him. Case files are stacked neatly on his desk, my name visible on several folders. I've reviewed everything you sent, he says, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. His voice carries the slight drawl of East Texas, warm but professional. What they've done isn't just immoral. It's criminal fraud at multiple levels. Can you prove it? My voice sounds stronger than I feel. Death certificates require verified medical reports. The Italian hospital listed doesn't have records matching yours. The doctor's signature was forged. Kendrick taps a folder. That's just the start. We've got identity theft, insurance fraud, inheritance fraud, federal mail fraud. What do you recommend? He leans forward. We file emergency motions to freeze all assets. We contact the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. I'm not looking for reconciliation anymore. I interrupt, surprising myself with the steel in my voice. I want justice. The words hang between us, and something shifts inside me. For 3 years, I've carried the weight of their rejection, wondering what I could have done differently. Now I see with perfect clarity this was never about me. Their actions reveal who they truly are. I don't need their acknowledgement to reclaim my identity. The next day, a FedEx package arrives from Mrs. Langford containing a notarized statement confirming our regular communication over the past 3 years. I have spoken with Olivia Mercer by phone and video call approximately twice monthly since her relocation to Portugal. It reads, "She is very much alive." Jeremy sends scanned copies of family trust documents, showing the recent transfers to Haley documents he borrowed from Dad's home office during Sunday dinner. His note reads, "They're saying you took money, but these show they're the ones stealing." With each piece of evidence, I stand taller during our calls. My voice grows more confident as Kendrick outlines our strategy. We're building an ironclad case, piece by methodical piece. I'm filing the motion to revoke the death declaration tomorrow. Kendrick says during our fourth call, "The criminal fraud complaint goes to the FBI the same day, and I've prepared an emergency asset freeze that should hit them by Friday." I nod, watching his efficient movements as he organizes the paperwork. Then my phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. "Special memorial service for Olivia Mercer. Sunday 10 a.m., Gracewood Chapel. Family only plus close friends." I stare at the screen, a strange calm settling over me. 3 years of hiding, 3 years of rebuilding, 3 years of being erased. I need to be there, I tell Kendrick, my decision already made. That night I book a one-way flight to Dallas. I pack only what matters: my documentation, my Portuguese ID card, my passport, and one black dress. Perfect for a funeral, especially my own. Almost 2 days later, the morning sun casts long shadows across Gracewood Chapel's manicured lawn as I position myself on the bench across the street. My black dress absorbs the Texas heat like a punishment I've chosen to bear. Inside my handbag, my passport and documentation rest against my hip-tangible proof that I exist, despite their efforts to erase me. Through the chapel's stained glass windows, figures in dark clothing move like actors in a play. I check my watch, 10 minutes until the service begins. One by one they arrive: Mother's silver Lexus first, then Father's BMW, then Haley's Range Rover. The family fleet, purchased with money that partially belonged to me. I snap photos of each arrival, my hands steadier than they've been in days. The text to Kendrick is brief. "All targets present, proceeding as planned." His reply appears seconds later. "Legal filings ready. Judge Watkins on standby for emergency orders once evidence is documented. Good luck." I wait until the last mourners trickle in before crossing the street. The chapel doors stand open, welcoming the community to grieve a woman who isn't dead. From my position just outside, I can hear Father's voice, practiced and powerful, filling the sacred space. "Today we gather to finally come to terms with losing our beloved daughter," he announces, his voice breaking at precisely the right moment. "Though the accident in Italy took Olivia from us, we've struggled to accept that she's truly gone. The cremation was performed according to Italian custom, but now we bring her spirit home." Several heads turn to exchange glances. An elderly man leans toward his wife, whispering something that makes her frown and shake her head. Father's story hits its first snag, told some people she drowned, others that there had been a boating accident, and now he mentions cremation that supposedly happened overseas. The inconsistencies are working in my favor, seeds of doubt sprouting in real time. From my vantage point, I see Mrs. Langford moving purposefully through the gathering. She stops beside Councilman Phillips, whose daughter I tutored through high school calculus. She whispers in his ear, and his eyebrows shoot up as he turns to stare at the portrait of me beside the empty urn. "The circumstances don't quite add up, do they?" I hear her say just loudly enough for nearby mourners to catch. "Have you seen any official documentation from Italy?" Murmurs ripple through the congregation like wind through prairie grass. I spot Kendrick in the back row, phone angled discreetly to record everything. He catches my eye and gives an almost imperceptible nod. The trap is set. The priest calls for a moment of silence to remember the departed. I pause at the chapel doors, my heart hammering against my ribs. Should I enter quietly, giving them a chance to explain themselves first? Or make my entrance impossible to ignore, ensuring everyone witnesses their reaction to seeing the ghost they'd created? The silence stretches, broken only by Haley's theatrical sniffles. I decide, no more hiding, no quiet entrances. They buried me publicly. They'll face me the same way. Inside, the sanctuary feels both familiar and foreign. I attended services here for 20 years before my banishment. The same polished pews, the same crimson carpet, but now transformed into the stage for my family's most audacious performance. Mrs. Langford has worked her way through half the congregation. I watch her approach Mrs. Blackwood, whose husband sits on the bank board with father. Which hospital in Italy handled the case? Mrs. Blackwood asks Haley when she passes by. My nephew works at a medical facility near Florence. Perhaps he knew the doctors? Haley stumbles, her practiced grief momentarily forgotten. Through not sure of the name, it was all so traumatic. Father handled those details. Strange, Mrs. Blackwood replies. I thought you were the one who identified the body. Mother's phone buzzes. She glances down, her face draining of color as she reads Kendrick's message. Fraud filing submitted. Emergency hearing scheduled for 3 p.m. Document preservation orders en route to family office. Her perfectly manicured hand trembles as she clutches father's arm. He leans down as she whispers urgently in his ear. For the first time, his mask of grief slips, revealing a flash of something primal fear. The priest approaches the pulpit again, unaware of the storm brewing in his sanctuary. At this time, I'd like to invite anyone who wishes to share memories of Olivia to come forward. A moment of hesitation ripples through the crowd. Then Father stands, smoothing his tie as he prepares to deliver another performance. He takes one step toward the pulpit when a collective gasp freezes him mid-stride. All eyes turn to the chapel doors, which remain conspicuously open. The stage is set, the audience is waiting, and I'm about to give them the performance of a lifetime. I lingered in the shadowed vestibule, watching my father approach the podium with the practiced stride of a man accustomed to commanding attention. The memorial program trembled slightly in my hands, my own face smiling back at me from glossy paper, birth and death, dates neatly printed beneath. As we finally lay our troubled daughter to rest, Charles began, voice breaking with calculated precision. We thank you all for sharing in our grief. His brow glistened with sweat despite the chapel's chill. Beside him, Mother clutched her purse with white knuckles, her face a mask of composure that only those who knew her best would recognize as strain. 3 rows back, Haley's eyes darted toward the entrancias, if sensing a disturbance in their carefully constructed fiction. Though Olivia's life ended far too soon, Father continued, clearing his throat, her legacy will live on. Margaret and I have decided to establish a foundation in Olivia's name, ensuring Haley's children become the next generation of leadership at Mercer Financial. The congregation murmured appreciatively. How convenient that my tragic death had solved their succession problems so neatly. I removed my sunglasses and stepped from the shadows. The heavy chapel doors closed behind me with a resonant thud that echoed through the vaulted ceiling. Every head turned. My heels struck the marble floor in steady rhythm as I walked down the center aisle. Tap, tap, tap. Each step deliberate, unhurried. The sound ricocheted off stone walls as gasps rippled through the pews. Oh my God, someone whispered. Is that? It can't be. I wore black appropriate for a funeral, although not the one they'd planned. The documentation felt solid in my hands. Passport, driver's license, and yesterday's Portuguese newspaper with me clearly visible in a cafe photo accompanying an article about expatriate entrepreneurs. Father's voice died mid-sentence. Mother's hand flew to her throat. Haley knocked over a vase of lilies as she staggered backward. I stopped directly before the altar, beneath my own portrait. I believe you're eulogizing someone who is very much alive, I said, voice carrying to the farthest corners of the chapel. Perhaps you'd like to correct the record? No one moved. No one spoke. Decades of social conditioning had not prepared this crowd for resurrection. Olivia, Father finally managed, voice strangled. You're alive? Yes, despite your best efforts. I turned to face the congregation, where confusion battled with horrified understanding on dozens of faces. People I'd known my entire life, teachers, neighbors, colleagues, witnesses to an elaborate fraud. For those wondering, I've been living in Lisbon for the past 3 years, working, paying taxes, building a life. Imagine my surprise when I learned I'd supposedly died in a boating accident in Italy. Mrs. Stevenson, my mother's bridge partner for 20 years, pressed her handkerchief to her mouth. Mr. Williams, my father's golf buddy, stared at my father with naked disgust. I stepped to the altar, where an ornate ceremonial urn sat gleaming. Empty, of course. There had been no body to cremate. With methodical precision, I placed my documentation beside it, passport open to my photo, driver's license face up, newspaper folded to display yesterday's date. I'm curious about the logistics, I said, addressing my family directly. Did you pay off an Italian official for the death certificate? Or simply forge it? The police will want to know. Mother swayed, then crumpled into the front pew in a dead faint. Father dropped his water glass, shattering it across the marble steps. Haley clutched the strand of pearls at her throat, me grandmother's pearls, which should have come to me on my 30th birthday, her face drained of color. The silence broke as whispers erupted throughout the chapel. Fraud, someone said, the word carrying despite its softness. Should we call the police? Asked another. Those poor children, said Mrs. Jenkins, though whether she meant me or Haley's kids remained unclear. I faced the congregation again, standing tall beneath the portrait that was meant to memorialize me. You all came here today because my family told you I was gone. They told you a story about a troubled daughter who met a tragic end. Today, I'm here to correct that story. I gestured to my documentation on the altar. I am Olivia Mercer. I am alive. And my family has committed fraud to steal my inheritance and erase my existence. Kendrick stood from his seat near the back, phone in hand, and gave me a subtle nod. The authorities had been contacted. The legal wheels were turning. From the corner of my eye, I spotted Jeremy in the last row, phone held high, recording everything. He caught my gaze and gave me a discreet thumbs up. The truth would not be buried again. Father took a halting step toward me, hand outstretched. Olivia, please, let's discuss this privately. The time for private discussions ended when you declared me dead, I replied, loud enough for everyone to hear. Some conversations need witnesses. As the first police siren wailed in the distance, I realized this was only the beginning. The path ahead would be complicated legally, emotionally, practically. But for the first time in 3 years, I wasn't fighting to prove I existed. Everyone in this room could see me now, clear as day, unmistakably alive. The morning sun streams through Kendrick's office windows, casting golden rectangles across the polished oak desk where I sit. My hand moves with deliberate purpose as I sign the final document in a thick stack of legal papers. And with that, Miss Mercer, Kendrick says, his eyes crinkling at the corners, you are officially alive again. I set down the pen and take a deep breath. 6 months have passed since I walked into my own memorial service. 6 months of depositions, court appearances, and forensic accountants piecing together the elaborate fraud my family had constructed. How does it feel? Kendrick asks, gathering the documents into a leather portfolio. I straighten my shoulders, feeling the difference in my posture. No longer am I the woman who hid in Portugal, afraid to claim her own name. It feels like coming home to myself. Later that afternoon, I stand at the entrance of the community center adjacent to Gracewood Chapel. A banner reads, Financial Family Fraud, Recognition and Prevention. 20 people fill the chairs, some taking notes, others nodding as I speak. The warning signs often appear in small inconsistencies. I explain, my voice steady and clear. A missing account statement. A document requiring your signature that you never remember seeing before. Questions deflected about financial matters that should be transparent. A woman in the front row raises her hand. How did you find the strength to fight back? The question hangs in the air as I look around the room. Through the windows, I can see the chapel where, just months ago, my parents eulogized me while I was very much alive. 3 years ago, I was erased, I say, running my fingers along the edge of the podium, the same one where my father had declared me troubled and dead. Today, I'm helping others ensure they can't be written out of their own stories. That transformation is its own kind of strength. The evening finds us at Rosalind's, a small restaurant with warm brick walls and the scent of rosemary in the air. Mrs. Langford sits beside me, her arthritis-curved fingers wrapped around a glass of white wine. Across the table, Jeremy grins as he raises his glass. Kendrick completes our small circle of celebration. To Olivia, Mrs. Langford says, her voice wavering slightly with emotion, who refused to stay buried. To being unmistakably, undeniably alive. I counter, clinking my glass against hers, feeling the vibration travel up my arm like a confirmation. The next morning, in my new apartment overlooking White Rock Lake, I review the business plan spread across my desk. Identity Protection Consultancy, reads the header, followed by detailed service offerings for victims of family financial fraud. My phone buzzes with another media request, the third this week, from a national news program wanting to interview me about identity theft within families. A publishing house has offered a book deal. Your story could help thousands, the email had said. The cursor blinks at the end of my response. I'd like to discuss the possibility. I reach for the framed document on my desk-me death certificate, now mounted behind glass in a simple black frame. Along the bottom edge, I've had a small brass plate engraved with the words, "The End of Invisibility." As I hang it on the wall beside my new business license, I pause, feeling the weight of the journey from that shocked woman in a Lisbon apartment to the person I am now. As I hung my own death certificate as a reminder of survival, I wondered if there are some betrayals that should never be forgiven, or if every broken relationship deserves one final chance at healing. Would you have offered your family the opportunity for redemption, or was justice itself the only closure needed? I step back, studying my reflection in the glass over the certificate. The woman looking back at me isn't just alive on paper. She's alive in purpose.